Hi, and we're back with our late at night dream chat. I haven't done these for, I guess it's a couple of months now at least, and I have gotten a lot of. When are you going to start doing them again? And I did promise that I would begin again with it. So, um, anyway, welcome, and I hope you are having a splendid evening as we cross over into Sunday. This past week, of course, was the time of the fall equinox, or for those of you that are south of the equator, Mabon. I should warn you that we may have an interruption because my cat has gotten behind my computer screen and he is looking like he is planning mischief. So I'm just going to reach forward and sort of brace my computer for the moment. Hi, Audrey is sending greetings, and hopefully my cat has now managed to make it over into the bookcase somewhat safely. I'm going to be distracted for the first couple of minutes of this, I can tell. So we'll see until he gets down, and maybe he's going to make a special appearance. But I think he's just going to try to be as distracting as possible. Um, this is tonight. I'm just working on dreaming, so I'm not doing the full midnight rite as we usually do. I'm trying to explore some aspects of dreaming for myself, and hopefully these can be useful to you too as you expand your capacities as an able dreamer. Earlier this evening, I was doing some research into the local tribes that once lived in Geyserville. And we normally think that that's the Pomo because that's what we're aware of now. But actually, this particular location where Isis Oasis is was largely Yuki or Wapo territory. So I was looking into some of their native practices. But they basically felt that the dream world, unless you were dreaming of the dead, actually, that the dreams were not something that appeared to be too important. Now, whenever we encounter something like that, we have to look at it and think, well, what kind of filter? Maybe they don't want to talk about these things because they are so important, or they don't want to somehow embarrass themselves by revealing too much. They did mention that the women shamans, or women medicine women, uh, also sometimes called the female chiefs, would work with dreams and would help people if they did have dreams of those that were deceased, would help kind of cleanse them from that possible affliction. Because they definitely did believe in ghosts appearing and manifesting in their villages, and but also that the spirits of the dead could come to you in dreams. And I think many of us have experienced something like that. It often is kind of a turning point for people when they are exploring metaphysical areas of life, when you start having very meaningful dreams, or at least start remembering that you're having these very meaningful dreams. And sometimes all it takes is to have an encounter with someone whom you love, or someone who is far away, or someone who is actually deceased, and find that there's some bit of reality, some fact or piece of information that you gain from the dream that is accurate. And that can really turn around how you look at dreaming. And I think once we've experienced the spiritual within the dream world, it's very hard to completely dismiss it from our everyday life and our natural way of perceiving things. I know for myself personally, um, I've always been blessed of being a good dreamer. And I remember having dreams as a very small child, as a child in the crib, and realizing their relationship to things in everyday life, and even having moments of lucidity within dreams at a very small age. And later on, this, I think, also kind of prepared me to be a spontaneous astral projector, which also began happening for me in my late childhood. And finally, in my teens, I began having a series of initiatory dreams. And this is all in a context of a family that, while they didn't disparage dreams, we had no real discussion of them. A dream might be mentioned once in a great while, but it was not something that I was getting a lot of framework for. So that also kind of bolstered my feeling that these were pathways that I was meant to take. These were things that were happening to me and seemed to be guiding me into a greater understanding of spiritual things as I grew on. And so some of my first very meaningful initiatory experiences did come within the framework of dreaming. And so I began recording dreams at an early age too. And of course, that's one of the things that I emphasize, both when you're exploring spiritual matters and when you're exploring dream work, is keeping good records and is keeping a good dream journal. Because this is something that grows with time, that you have of documentation of your experiences, and you may find some patterns and repeating themes that in ordinary consciousness you just won't pick up on. Or you might find that you have certain types of dreams at certain times of the year, and this can also indicate things to you that might expand your understanding of your own spirituality and your own spiritual connections. So I do see that there's a few people out there, and I am so glad. If you have any questions or if you want to share a dream, I would be happy to work through it with you and see if we can generate some additional insights. This is something that I've been doing a lot lately, working with, very, very fragmentary dreams, because for some reason I'm in a period where, although I'm aware that I'm having very intense dreams, I am not retaining them terribly well. And so I'm coming out of what I know is a full night's dreaming with only a few kind of scattered images, just sort of the fraying edges of the dream that you try to kind of grab onto and hang on to, but sometimes you're not terribly successful. But one way of overcoming that is by respecting whatever little bit of a dream that you get, writing it down, and trying to explore the associations from it. One dream that I did recall recently was interesting to me because I was in this Chinese shop. I believe it was Chinese, but certainly Asian. And there were some printed paper images that are like the ones that you use if you're doing a rite to Kuan Yin, or where you burn the image. It's supposed to send your message up to heaven and so on. But these, behind them, they were folded up, so I couldn't really see the images terribly well. But behind them, it was labeled that it was Isis. And it was written with the Coptic spelling of Isis, which looks like ICIC. And two of them were labeled this way. And then there was this woman shopkeeper who was there, and I tried to find out more about why these were labeled as Isis and what the connection was, because Isis's influence on Kuan Yin and a number of other Eastern Asian divinities is a topic that's always been of great interest to me, so I wanted to find out more about it. But the woman, who I believe was this woman who I know slightly, working at a Thai restaurant nearby, she didn't know anything beyond just, well, that was the label, she didn't know why, and so on. And so I was left feeling a little frustrated about that. But I have been trying to explore connections with Isis that have been retained through Coptic and through, Coptic rites as well. So it did relate to some basic research of mine, but I wanted to find out what they were really saying and why that was was so labeled. But that was one of the few ones that I've really gotten. And I see Alma is saying that she doesn't remember her dreams often. Um, that is something that does work better with practice. And if you can get a good dream journal that you like, with a pen that you like, and keep it by your bedside in a place that you can just blindly grab for it, um, and just even scribble down a few words or anything that you remember as you come out of a dream, that can train you into having better dream recall. There's an old tradition that putting a little jasmine oil in your ear is supposed to help you remember things that you were told in dreams. So you might try a bit of jasmine oil. And they were talking about, as with many ancient traditions, they're not necessarily talking about an essential oil. Most of the time, when you read about ancient oils, they were perfume oils. They were oils that were created by enfleurage, or, um, by decocting some sort of flower from flower waters, just exposing them in water to sunlight. All of these things were the fragrant substances that were used back in ancient times. Distillation, at least as we know it now, which is necessary for essential oils, really didn't come into wide usage until maybe the 13th or 14th century. Um, so when you're talking about essential oils and people talk about the ancient uses of essential oils, I kind of, go, definitely the flowers were used, definitely oils made from flowers and fragrant leaves and resins and so on were used, but what we perceive as essential oils were probably not. Um, I do put one caveat on that, is that they think that the ancient Minoans might have had ceramic stills. And there's some equipment that's found at this one place, which is actually it's near a grape press at Vathi Petro. They think that the fragments that they've got of the ceramics might have been assemblable into something like a distillation still. So perhaps they did have a version of essential oils. It's just not proved yet. Ancient Crete was known as a great exporter of fragrant substances, so it was a huge part of their economy, and so they may well have been motivated and have made the discovery that they could actually distill a scent from a flower. Something else, just beyond the subject of essential oils for a moment more, something else that we often forget is the distillation of an essential oil does not capture everything in the plant. So it is only a fraction, in some cases a huge fraction, but still only a fraction of what is actually fragrant in the plant. So that's something else to consider as well. For example, certain properties, certain very beneficial health-giving properties of frankincense are present in the resin, but those properties do not make it over through the distillation process. So you hear, various things said about frankincense oils and frankincense essential oils. It actually applies to the resin, but it does not apply to the essential oil. So always have to be on your guard a little bit to make sure that you're using the same language as the person who is describing these properties, and make sure that it actually applies to what you end up with. But to remember your dreams, I think part of it is just making the decision to regard dreams as important and worthy of remembering, and then to record them as an action. That's kind of a way of honoring the dream, that you consider it important enough to write down, to record and keep. And I think gradually you will find that you will recall more dreams. There's also certain things in our diets, in fragrances, and other things that as you look a little deeper, you can find things that work for you that will enhance your dream recall. And I'm wrestling with that myself right now because I know I'm dreaming a lot. I know it's interesting. I'm coming out with this tantalizing sense of, great things going on, but they're just on that other side of the curtain. So I need to continue to explore that. And that's one reason why I'm coming to you tonight, because this is one of my ways of saying, okay, dreams are important and let's focus on them a little bit more. And Audrey is saying that she has had a lot of dreams in the past that would have been nightmarish possibilities in real life. And that now that she writes them down, she can see how old and outdated her fears are. And in her last two potentially terrifying dreams, she was calm and able to leave them by realizing they were dreams of terrors long gone, and that she now feels free. And that's an incredibly powerful and potent point to be, Audrey. And I think it's a wonderful place to start launching a greater exploration of the powers of dreaming and some of the healing and just interesting experiences that we can have in our nighttime hours as we give ourselves the freedom to really dream in more depth. And another aspect of that for some of us is, dreaming lucidly, where you actually realize that you are in a dream, and then the next step of knowing that you can control, to at least a certain degree, what is going on in the dream at that point. And that's very helpful if you are in a nightmarish situation, because you can often turn it around, or you can have the courage to confront what is terrifying to you and overcome it that way. And one dreaming tradition is that, if you are being pursued and you can stop and turn around and confront it, once you've made that confrontation, to ask for a gift and to ask for something positive to bring back from that dreaming encounter. But that takes development of inner courage in the land of dreams. So, one thing that often we forget about is in that wonderful hypnagogic state where you're going into sleep and into dreaming. You may be vaguely aware of kind of seeing images on your eyelids. It's a very malleable time. And what I mean by that is I've often, on nights where I'm getting a lot of, kind of imagery going past, there's really the sense, some things you can kind of pick out and there's just sort of a stream. Many people see a stream of faces or places or just, kind of things kind of coming in and out that don't quite look like anything, but you get the sense that there is something there. If you choose a point in your visual field to kind of give a little bit more focus to, you may often find that you can really determine what that kind of shimmering, vibrating image becomes. You can direct it, at least to some degree, with practice. And once you direct your attention to it, you'll often find that an entire landscape kind of opens up. You're no longer aware of the hypnagogic state, and you're fully in a dream world. And often that is a way that you can hang on to lucidity, at least for a short time, as you go in and see what is going on in these dreams and what is being shown to you that night. And like everything else that we do, setting an intention to dream and to dream well can also increase the amount of dream material that you get and help you enjoy it more, and also assure you that you do have an element of control within the dreaming state. And there are many levels of that. As you go on in dreaming, you may find yourself sometimes waking up in a dream from another dream, and then being aware that you are not yet fully awake and going on to yet another level. And I had one fairly recent series of that where I think it was about 6 or 7 levels. I've heard people that have gone through, up to like 14 false awakenings before awaking in what we at least recognize as our normal reality. It may or may not, strictly speaking, be so. Um, Many active dreamers believe that they do pop in on parallel universes or parallel lives during some dreams. And I say during some dreams, and that's kind of an important point to touch on, because not all dreams are the same. There's a whole variety of different types of dreams, some that you may regard as more or less important, but they're very different. There's kind of, to me, especially when I was, doing a lot of very mundane work, I'd have a nighttime dream. I remember when I was in college and working as a waitress, I had a nightmare that consisted of me standing in the middle of this restaurant where I was working with a glass of milk and not knowing where on earth that glass of milk was meant to be delivered. And, just the fear of messing up and everyone looking at me with my glass of milk and not knowing where I'm going with it. I've always remembered that. Those things, I think, are just, kind of mental doodlings in a way. Maybe there was a much greater meaning behind that. Maybe it had to do with nourishment. Maybe it had to do with purity. Maybe it had to do with, calcium deficiency. But I think it was just me, a part of me just rehearsing an awkward situation with what I was spending a lot of my time doing, which was, just taking food from here to there and pulling plates and things like that. Um, so some things are just, I think, mental doodlings. It's just clearing out some thoughts, but not necessarily being much more intense. I think the dreams where we're really in conversation with other people and really discussing things and being, aware in detail of our surroundings and their unusual surroundings or different ones, those I think are much more likely to be a genuine contact with someone else and with some other spiritual energies. So, all right. Any other input tonight? Well, I don't want to keep up anyone too late, so we can go ahead and close if you are so inclined, if there's no other comments for the evening. And as I mentioned, I am going to try to do more of these and arrange a list of topics and hopefully commit to them. I've tried to do this before, but hopefully I can fulfill that this time a little bit more thoroughly than I have in the past. So if anyone does have a dream to share or anything that they want to discuss, I am here. And I also want to mention that we will be having our convocation online, and I hope to see you there at our wonderful, wonderful speakers, 4 days of that. And you can find that at Eventbrite and also at Isis Oasis Sanctuary page too. And I'm always so glad to see everybody, and I am glad that you connected with me tonight. I will be inspired to do this again soon. I usually try to do it if I'm going to do it on Saturday nights, and so hopefully we'll do that for next Saturday. And I am going to do a session during Convo too. So store up some dreams for me. Maybe that'll be the inspiration to remember your dreams a little bit better, Alma. Uh, Try to have just one that you can bring to the convocation dream session. So, all right, ladies. Well, good night. Blessings. Um, I know I can. Here's something I can do for you. The Good Night Goddess song. Good night, goddess of the night. Good night, goddess of starlight. Good night, Isis, furl your wings. Good night, goddess of all things. Good night, goddess, hold me tight. Good night, goddess of starlight. Good night, ladies. Sweet dreams.